Welcome back to another edition of Matchbook's NFL podcast. We're one more this week. Rob Pizzola is back. Rob, we missed you last week. Welcome back, buddy. Drew Dinsick also on board on this Wednesday afternoon, UK time, Wednesday morning, Drew's time. And Sommer, you're on board as well, buddy. Good to see you. Good to see you, mate. We're at the halfway point of the NFL season. Of course, we've got 18 regular season weeks this year, brand new. Let's take a look at how you guys are doing. I wasn't too good at the report keeping last year, but I've kept the scorecard this year. I'm all over it. Absolutely all over this midterm report that we're going to look at. And it's been pretty decent. So obviously, two of you guys missed different weeks. We had 25 best bets of 27 weeks. So altogether, we're doing pretty decently. What have we got so far? So we have had some good looks here. You can look at the spreadsheet here online if you're watching us on the stream. But for those that aren't watching us on the stream, if you placed 100 quid on any of the guys' best bets, all of the guys' best bet, you would be up 647 quid at this stage. It would be a 26% ROI. Not too bad, Rob Pizzola. Any quick takeaways from the first half of the season, mate? Where are we going? What could we do better? Or where are we at?
I'm surprised at how well my best bets have done. I didn't actually feel that the record was this good, but I guess that's the NFL will take its toll on you after a while. But we were talking about this off air, myself and Drew, right before we came on. And I mean, my takeaway is I have no idea who's going to win the Super Bowl this year. I just feel like there's so much parity and there's so many different teams that could do it. The AFC, a couple of weeks ago, if you'd asked me, I would have said Buffalo's pretty much a lock to be there. And now I'm kind of scratching my head as to what are the Bills? They haven't played anyone and their offense is really struggling. Is this like Josh Allen turning into a pumpkin again? I don't know. So I think like my biggest takeaway right now is just the amount of uncertainty I have going forwards with a lot of these teams.
Pretty even market, Drew Dinsick. Top of the outright, we got the Tampa Bay Bucks 7.2, Buffalo Bills 7.8. Seriously. How are they second favorites?
That's a great question, man. How was Josh Allen the MVP market leader last week? Like all this, there's a lot of questions that you can ask, and I agree with Rob's takes. Fundamentally, I guess my full couple points. That sounds like a lot of quid. I don't know quid personally, but just imagine if you'd been making those bets in Bitcoin, you'd have a lot of Bitcoin. But my worst pick of the season so far was last week. I should own that. I took the Bills. I cannot, and honestly, like if you had gone back in time and you had told me, hey, I can guarantee you that the Jaguars are only going to score 9 points in this game, how much would you exactly how much would you like of your net worth on Buffalo minus 13.5 or whatever? It would have been a dangerous bargain. And the fact that Bills only scored 6 was absolutely ridiculous. I think it's pretty clear at this point in the season, we're not getting 2020 Josh Allen. We're getting somewhere in between 19 and 20 Josh Allen. I don't know if it's just the fact that he got the contract and he's, taking this little bit of the foot off the gas in terms of his preparation for these games or what, or if last year was a little bit of an outlier to the positive. But Rob's exactly right. The Bills have played pretty much no one. They've played the Titans and the Chiefs and then a bunch of other teams. And the fact that they are 5-win team and are not running away with the AFC is a disappointment. And then on the flip side, like the AFC looks flat because it is flat, but that's because all of these teams have played each other. So there's been attrition with teams beating each other down, except for the Titans, who apparently can't lose to any of the good teams. It's not crazy that we are having trouble distinguishing who really should stand out in the AFC. And I think at this point, you can probably pick your horse out of a handful of teams that have a legitimate chance and just hope one of them gets hot here down the home stretch. And that's probably who's going to run to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, look, so before I get to you, just on Josh Allen, I was watching Red Zone, love Red Zone. But if I heard one more mention of Josh Allen sacking Josh Allen, just from Scott Hansen, I was like, seriously, man? Seriously? And then he came up with that little nugget about how he was the next 7th pick the year after. I was just, my head is going to be fried there. Suma, look, I know you're probably not a major man for an anti-post bet in terms of the outright, but like it is such an even market, and that kind of tells its own story that it's so hard to pick a winner at this stage.
Yeah, especially in the AFC. I mean, I'm just looking at the table. We have 9 teams at 5 wins right now. Yeah. Some teams like the Chiefs, Browns, Bengals, not even in the playoff picture right now. I mean, the Bengals 2 weeks ago, they pretty much slapped me in my face by beating the Ravens. They were first in the AFC and now they are 10th, just 2 games later. I mean, completely ridiculous. And when we look at the NFC, we have 5 pretty good teams at the top where we can say, oh, there's a reason why they are in the top 5, like the Cards, Packers, Bucks, Cowboys, and Rams. But in the AFC, I feel like everything can happen. I mean, the Steelers are in the 6th place, and their schedule after the Lions game is so brutal that you could probably tell me they are going to finish 6-11 from now on, and I wouldn't be shocked at all. We will probably talk about the Browns later today, but other than that, the AFC is probably the biggest surprise of the season so far to me. I mean, the Raiders at 5th, the Bills at 4th. The Chargers are now in 3rd place after they completely stunk against the Ravens and the Patriots. It's completely ridiculous.
Yeah, it is literally bonkers. It's so hard to get a read in this. All right, what we're going to do today, we're going to do Browns Patriots to kick off, Chiefs Raiders, we're then going to do Vikings Chargers, and the Saints Titans. And we're also going to have any other bets section and best bets as ever. All right, so yeah, let's get into it. AFC, good matchup this one. I don't know if it's going to be in terms of like an offensive fireworks here, too much at Foxborough, so it may not be, maybe. Money line as we have it at the moment, Browns at 2.2, the Patriots at 1.79. Browns getting a 2-point start at 1.96, same side 1.96, Pats -2. And 45 is the total, trended towards the over there, which I'm quite surprised by. I thought this total would be a bit lower. Rob Pizzola, obviously we have these COVID doubts with the Cleveland Browns. I don't think we're getting too carried away. I don't think the marketers got carried away, obviously, because if Chubb gets 2 more, negative tests, he goes. But what are you making of this one in terms of a side or maybe a total there?
Yeah, so for me, there's a couple of looks in this game. I like the Browns. That 2.2 on the money line is very intriguing, and I like the under at 45 here. And this is largely because I really love the way that the Cleveland defense matches up against this New England offense. I think this is the second week in a row that the Browns are kind of getting disrespected in market. I had the wrong team favored with Browns and Bengals last week. I think that's the case here. But if we look at New England specifically offensively, Mac Jones last week had a negative EPA per play against the Panthers. And just for perspective, his EPA per play last week was worse than Jordan Love. He did not have a good game. The Patriots ended up blowing out the Panthers because Sam Darnold is terrible and the Panthers offense couldn't get anything going. But that was the first time all season that the New England Patriots have played a team with a top 5 pressure rate. The only other time they played a defense that has a top 10 pressure rate all year was when they played the Chargers, and Mac Jones also had a negative EPA per play in that game. He has the most drastic splits of any quarterback with a clean pocket and when he's under pressure. And the Browns are second in the league in pressure rate this year, only behind the Bills. If we adjust for schedule, the Browns are by far number 1 in the league right now by quite a bit. And they've had a significant number of injuries on defense so far this year with Jadeveon Clowney, Anthony Walker, Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome being hurt at times. Now this is a completely healthy defense overall that is likely going to generate a lot of pressure. And I'm just struggling to see the Patriots scoring and moving the ball consistently. I think this Cleveland defense is maybe the most underrated unit in the entire league right now. So by virtue of that, I got a couple of looks here. I like the Browns on the money line, and I like the under at 45.
Yeah, Drew, that under jumped out at me in a major way too. Just, when you're kind of thinking about these numbers in your head, I wouldn't have been surprised to see 41 or 42 there.
It does. And it is, whenever you see a surprise like that, it's fun to try to figure out who in the market was really driving this, because there's been action to the over. Somebody went to the window and said, no, 44, that's too low. This needs to be 45. And I don't know that I didn't completely understand the case for that. I think Rob's points were all fair. I think Mac Jones has had an underwhelming season despite the Patriots having a winning record. And the Patriots are just a tough team to handicap. Who are they? What are they? Like, are they getting better? Are they, are the results that we see as you look up and down their schedule to this point, is that indicative of a team that is improving, that is kind of in the mold of like the 2001 Patriots, where they have, solid, defensive play. They're not making mistakes. They're not giving up, big plays. They're not putting themselves in negative game states. And then on the offense, they're just kind of doing just enough and really leaning on the run game to a large degree. And, Mac Jones, limited depth of target, limited pass attempts in any given game. And, it's a weird way to try to win in 2021, but they're doing it. I almost, Bill Belichick, again, all similarly, tough guy to figure out from a handicapping standpoint, because he obviously does an incredible job of preparing his team for a game. Like just identifying roles and responsibilities, identifying his opponent's tendencies, getting his guys prepared to go out there and take on any given opponent. He is probably the best we've ever seen at that. In terms of developing young players, especially on the defensive side of the ball, he might be the best we've ever seen at that. In-game decision-making this season has been an utter nightmare. He has literally taken points off the board in most of the games this season for the Patriots, which is tough to swallow and square with someone who is as good as he is at the other aspects of coaching. And so it's tough to really go hard against the Patriots, recognizing that, they're going to come in with a good game plan for the Browns. The Browns are not an especially difficult team to prepare for. They don't have multiple ways really to this point in the season that they can beat you. They're going to try to be relatively physical, lean in the strength of their offensive line to, really dictate, win the battles in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Hope Baker Mayfield doesn't make a backbreaking interception, and then, just kind of pick you apart with this, with the small stuff as well. So these are relatively similar teams ultimately when you kind of match them up. And so the fact that it's a round to pick them, I think, is reasonable. I think the opening line of Patriots -3 was also tough to square. That one made sense to me that came down. But realistically, I couldn't get involved in this game, even though this is super, super high leverage. As I run my simulations throughout the rest of the season, as Suma kind of teased off the top there, I throw the Steelers out. I'm throwing the Raiders out as well. I think both of those teams have schedules that prevent them from realistically having a shot of landing in the top 7. I have both the Browns and the Patriots in. So I think these are two likely wild card teams in the AFC, just based on their strength of schedule, based on sort of the arc that they are kind of improving as we go through the season. They're getting healthy, Browns specifically getting healthy as we go through the season. I think ultimately this is going to be a defensive battle. And if I was going to make a play, I'd play the under. But to this point, I have passed on this game.
So before I get to you, just a question from Leonard Welch watching us on YouTube. Could this game have a flip favorite before Sunday? I suppose it is very possible, Suma, if Chubb gets the go ahead and he passes those 2 negative COVID tests, that potentially the Browns are going to get more money. There's 2.1 currently in Matchbook.
Yeah, I mean, when Chubb got ruled out, I think we saw like a 12-cent move or something like that.
Yeah.
But I could imagine that it was not solely Chubb, but also like some people being afraid maybe there are more COVID cases for the Browns. We never know with that. I think we should know more today. I wouldn't be surprised. I agree with both. I also like the Browns. I think the Browns, just in general, they are clearly the better team from top to bottom. And they also have a great matchup. I mean, the Patriots defense has been very decent so far, but they have some really issues against the run. They are like a below average defense against the run. They have faced a top 3 easiest schedule of opposing run defense so far. I think the Browns, even without Nick Chubb, if it's D'Ernest Johnson, they should be able to run the ball. That whole offense really, or let's say that whole Browns team really looked like the version that we all expected going into the season last week against the Bengals. Denzel Ward is back, makes a huge impact. That defensive line is stout. They might be getting JOK back like maybe next week or in 2 weeks. So they're only Jack Conklin and JOK away from being completely healthy top to bottom. And to be honest, I was crunching some numbers today, and I really like the Browns going forward. And I also like them on some futures prices, because I can see a realistic scenario if Baker Mayfield gets some more consistency, that the Browns enter the AFC playoff picture with the fewest weaknesses. I mean, they have a deep secondary. They are 4 deep at cornerback, stout defensive line, great offensive line, great coaching, solid quarterback play. Everything might be clicking at some point going forward. And I was checking some early down efficiency numbers today. I was looking at net EPA per play, net success rate, and net yards per play on early downs so far this season. the Browns. So it's offense minus defense. So basically, both things combined. The Browns rank third in net EPA per play, first in success rate, first in yards per play on early downs. They are arguably the best NFL team on early downs so far this season. They just had some tremendous issues on late downs, especially on third down, fourth down. Let's talk about the Odell Beckham drop on fourth down in Chargers territory. Could have swung the game. They had that punt fumble in Arrowhead on fourth down in their own red zone. I mean, if those two plays don't happen, we are looking at a 7-2 Browns team that might be favored by 2.5 or something this week. So I really like the Browns going forward. I'm not overly concerned by their running back situation going into this week if there are no further COVID cases. So I agree with both. I also like the Browns.
Is it enough to get this to a bet, guys, in the Browns 2.1 money line? Yeah. Yeah.
I have so much futures exposure on Cleveland. I just need them to win and do not take a step back. Please do not take a step back. Continue to march forward, because Cleveland's schedule is not especially easy coming up. They still got 2 against the Ravens. They got to play the Bengals and the Steelers again. So yeah.
All right. Browns money line is the official play at 2.1. We got there. I like it. Before we get into the next couple of games, just want to tell folks about the exclusive sign-up offer for Matchbook's NFL podcast listeners. Use the bonus code NFL20 when signing up at matchbook.com to avail of a 20 quid free bet. 20 quid, 20 pounds, $20, 20 euro. I just get that old quid, that Irishism out of the way there. Drew Dinsick didn't like that earlier. So NFL20 is the sign-up offer. Bet 20, get 20. Not too bad with the old colloquialisms, Drew. Though I keep them.
What's the payout structure on quid exactly? Like the general market.
It's apples for apples, mate. Don't worry about that.
Oh, okay.
Matchbook.com/NFL20, NFL20 to check out terms and conditions of that sign-up offer. Chiefs Raiders, AFC West, all of a sudden is the most competitive division in football. Betting as we have it at matchbook.com. Kansas City Chiefs at 1.73. The Las Vegas Raiders 2.26. The line is moving with the Raiders, folks. They're now down to 2-point underdog on the main handicap line at slight odds against 2.04. 52 is the total. Drew Dinsick, if I told you last year, if I told you the year before, if I told you the year before that, and the year before that you were getting the Chiefs -2 at the Raiders, we would be having lumps on. Bankroll. But what are we thinking here? Is this the ultimate buy low spot? Because we're kind of waiting around, we're kind of filtering, and we're kind of skirting this issue. This Chiefs team, it's just not looking great right now.
It is, and yes, you said we have Chiefs -2, and I do have a lump on it. So I think that's spoiling the ending here a little bit. But ultimately, similar rosters to last season. There haven't been major changes here in terms of sort of the key players. The Raiders roster obviously looks different. Skill position players, offensive line, they have improved their defense. All of that is true. However, these still aren't fundamentally different teams than we saw play this time last year, and the Chiefs were 7-point favorites. So that kind of tells you that the market has, in a relative sense, moved 5 points, and which is and across 3. So this is now a meaningful, upgrade of Raiders, downgrade of Chiefs in a relative sense to last season. I don't necessarily think that's warranted. And in fact, I think if you use your preseason, if you have any kind of preseason prior still in your numbers and you're making a number for this game, I find it very tough to make anything under 3. I think you're talking about 3.5 if you're being aggressive in downgrading the Chiefs personally. That said, I'm hopeful that this isn't the ultimate buy low for the Chiefs. I'm hopeful that they don't come out and just utterly blow doors off the Raiders in prime time. I would like there to be sort of a longer arc here where we can back the Chiefs a couple of weeks at a continued, at this reduced price, because ultimately in the market over the balance of this season, I do think they are at the bottom of their range in terms of pricing this week. I think in general, what the Chiefs have done this season has been wildly unimpressive, but their defense, which has sort of been the focus of a lot of the criticism, they've faced one of the most difficult, opposing offenses schedules, and that we've not just this season, but of many seasons. They've taken everybody's best shot. Like, they haven't gone out there and played a team that had a bad day until they got the Packers with Jordan Love last week. That was the first time that you really could say, a team came in and didn't give them like a legitimate test. Played at their expectation or better against the Chiefs. So I don't think that you can take the Chiefs data that you have from the first half of the season and use that to project their defense in the second half of the season at all. They're getting healthier at key positions. They're finding out that, they're doing some self-scouting and some self-evaluation and improving some of the roles and responsibilities across the defensive players, namely using Les Sorensen, and that has worked out so far relatively well. So I think they continue to press that button. And then the Chiefs offense, which has been a tough handicap, not just for us on this podcast, but for everyone who's in the market, handicapping the NFL, they still have all of the pieces that make them as dynamic as we saw for the last 3 seasons, which is namely they have Pat Mahomes, they have Andy Reid, they have Tyreek Hill, they have Travis Kelce. Tyreek Hill continues to get healthier. I think his injury was not talked about a lot, but I think it limited his ability to create separation, particularly in terms of generating explosive plays. People all point to everyone in the NFL is using the 2 high safety coverages against Pat Mahomes, and it's been the buster for him. It's been the one that he can't figure out. And well, part of that is because you can still, 2 high wasn't always perfect for stopping Tyreek Hill because of his speed, but now because he's a little limited, it is. So I think there's a lot being made of some things that are still fixable, that are still able to be solved, to be improved by this Chiefs offense as we go through the remainder of the season. And even if you do want to point to that one kind of way of stopping Mahomes with the 2 high safeties, when have the Raiders ever proven that they can do that? Do the Raiders have the personnel to do that? And are you seeing something last week where that was sort of the exact opposite of what this Raiders bring in terms of scheme and personnel with the Packers defense, where they specifically run the quarters and the dime all the time? Like, they're built to specifically run that type of stopping defense, whereas the Raiders, this secondary is extremely lean. I have replacement level grades on 3 players out of the 5, if they're out there in nickel. 3 players out of the 5 I have replacement level or worse grades on. And I just don't see how this defense runs what has been working to keep the Chiefs under 30 points to this point in the season. And really every matchup that you've seen of this kind of schemed, this defense, these personnel, at least over the last several years, the Chiefs have gotten 30 plus points on them. So I think the Chiefs get theirs in this one. And it really comes down to what's going on with the Raiders and their approach to this game. Do the leaders in that locker room still have the attention of all of the players, or has this really spiraled out of control with the with the 3 incidents and counting now going on with this roster and with this franchise? So Raiders are at an absolutely terrible spot in the same sense that Suma mentioned he could see the Steelers finish 6-11. I could see the Raiders finish 5-12. They really only have one game against a sub 500 team left on their schedule. It's the Washington football team. Every other game they're going up against a reasonably difficult opponent, and at least an opponent that can put points on the board. So if the Raiders, have any dysfunction on offense, if Derek Carr, is unable to really kind of bring these guys together the way he did in the absence of Gruden, then the Raiders are in deep trouble. And I think the Chiefs ultimately get this win in this cover. I'm hopeful that it's not a runaway blowout. Remind everyone how good the Chiefs are moment, because I'd like to get a fair price for the Chiefs next week against the Cowboys. I'd like to get a fair price in the Chiefs coming out of their bye against the Broncos. But ultimately, in the grand scheme of things in a futures market, I do think this is a decent buy low spot on Kansas City.
Suma, Drew touched on the side there in terms of the Chiefs being the option here. Talk to me about the total. 52 is a lot here, Suma, isn't it?
Yeah, so first of all, I don't have any strong opinion on that game so far. I think we can make a case for the under here because the Chiefs offense has been struggling tremendously. The Raiders have 2 great pass rushers, so Patrick Mahomes cannot stay in the pocket all too long, to be honest. And on the other side, the Raiders have really tried to get their deep passing game going this season. I just checked it out. On passes of 16 or more air yards, The Raiders have 67 attempts, second most in the league, despite having a bye week so far. Henry Ruggs really opened up some things. They also rank second in EPA per play on those passes. And now Ruggs is gone, and I don't know how quickly they can incorporate Deshaun Jackson into that offense to get anything over the top going. I mean, they have some intriguing weapons like Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, Brian Edwards, but neither of those guys is really that speedster that can open up some things, that can make Derek Carr or can provide Derek Carr with some good looks over the top. So and on the other side, the Chiefs defense has been getting a little bit better. Melvin Ingram is now like a very quality pass rusher in that formation, where Chris Jones can switch more to the defensive tackle position. So I think there's a case to be made for the under here. Just 1 point in terms of Chiefs facing all those two high shells. The Raiders have Gus Bradley at as their defensive coordinator, and this is probably a good point for Drew. The Raiders have played 170 defensive passing snaps in cover 3 and cover 1, and only 12 bottom of the league in cover 2. I don't know whether Gus Bradley, who loves to run the same defense over and over again, is all of a sudden going to switch to that cover 2 high look. And then I also don't know whether they have the personnel defense to make such a switch within 7 days. So that would probably be one of the arguments I can make for the Chiefs. The Raiders typically under Gus Bradley don't play that kind of defense that the Chiefs have struggled against this season.
Rob, you may have some points to add to what the guys have, but let me just ask you, if you're a person that has a Chiefs outright ticket right now since maybe a couple of weeks ago or the start of the season, how worried would you be?
Oh, very. I mean, I'm not at the point where I'm throwing it in the fireplace or anything like that, but it's been a legitimate struggle for this offense going forwards. And we've had this conversation probably a few times now about how like this is a get right game for the Chiefs, right? They're going to just magically turn it around, and they haven't been able to do that. So I'm certainly concerned about that. I do echo Drew's points about the defense, which I think will be better in the latter half of the year than it was in the first half of the year. There were some key personnel injuries there on the defensive line. Also, Tre'Davious Ward being out at corner for a while was hurting them as well. But I don't really know what to make the Chiefs. My concern with betting them this week is that I kind of feel like the Raiders might be slightly undervalued in market right now as well, pretty much because of a very misleading result last week against the Giants, in which they really dominated that game. They had 1.5 more yards per play than the Giants last week. They outproduced them significantly in EPA and success rates. They still found a way to lose 23-16. That's because they scored 1 touchdown on 6 drives into the red zone. They actually had 5 times inside the Giants' 20-yard line last week, or inside the 15-yard line, I believe, and they only got 9 points out of it. And like those games happen. For Washington, they happen every single week somehow. But for the Raiders, it's not typical of them. The Giants do have a very good red zone defense. The Chiefs do not. The Chiefs are 28th in red zone defense this year. They give up a touchdown on 70% of drives into the red zone. This has been a consistent problem for them for years now. It's not just some sort of anomaly that's come up this year as well. So, I mean, I'm very in tune with market on this game. I think the line should be somewhere right around where it is right now, both side and total. But I mean, who knows? Maybe Kansas City does find a way. But I think right now we're seeing with a lot of these teams in the league, whether it's Kansas City or Buffalo, I think those are the two that come to mind right away, that there's some sort of defensive blueprint to beat these teams. Teams are just kind of copying that. And until they can figure out a way to get through it, I can't really back them. And Andy Reid might be able to take some pressure off by actually running the ball. I just don't think he's the kind of coach that's going to do that and come out and take the ball out of Mahomes' hands. So much uncertainty for me with Kansas City right now, and just not a game that I personally love.
It's an interesting one what you bring up there in regards to the Chiefs and the Bills. I know I get it with the Chiefs, they're in a tough AFC West, but in terms of their outright prices, the Chiefs are only double the price of the Bills, and I don't really see that either. I don't know if there's a major amount between those teams, but again, albeit they're obviously in a weaker division, the AFC East, and the Bills will get their playoffs. Drew, I'm going to back you here with this one. Chiefs -2 to get right spot, 1.88. I like the case. I don't think this is going to be any of our biggest bets of the week. Or is it Drew? Was this one of your biggest bets? No, it is.
Yeah, no, we'll save the surprise. We'll save the suspense.
I tried to ruin it for you. It's good. All right, that's it. Let's move on. Before we get to the next game, guys, if you are watching or listening to us today and you are enjoying the content, please leave us a preferential review on your preferred podcast app. Or if you're on YouTube, click the subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. It helps get our content out to a wider audience and will be very much appreciated. Next game, we're going to talk about two teams that, if you've trust issues in life, you'll have issues with these teams because they can play with your emotions. The Vikings and the Chargers, the game we're talking about in LA on Sunday night. Money line as we have it at the moment. Vikings 2.26, the Chargers 1.73. Vikings getting a 2.5 point start in the main handicap line at 2.02. 53 is the total, and that total is rising in Sumat. There's a reason this total is rising because the Sharps are already on, including yourself, sir. You were on the Chargers last week. It was a great show, -1.5, but you're thinking points and plenty of them on Sunday.
Yes. So first of all, I had the Vikings and the Chargers last week, and it was a sweat until the last second. I don't know how these two teams keep doing it. Me and the Chargers, I think, let's say every bettor in the Chargers has been in an ongoing relationship for like 10 years now. Really crazy. Yeah. So I like the over. I played it at 52. I think it's at 53. It was on your screen. I still like it at that number. I think it should be much closer towards 54. And I just think that we are getting two teams that will go and have good matchups to go after each other back and forth all game long. The Vikings defense has been playing really well over the course of the season. They have been a top 5 team against the pass. They have struggled a lot against the run. So they were a lot better against the pass. But now, over a 3-week stretch, they lost their number 1 cornerback, their number 1 edge rusher, and their number 1 safety because of COVID. Harrison Smith will be out. That's what the Vikings have announced last week. And when you lose 3 key players at all 3 levels of your defense, on top of being bad against the run, I don't think that's a great recipe to face a, let's say, improving Chargers defense. They were really good early in the season because they were excelling at on late downs. They struggled tremendously on early downs. I think up until the bye week, they had a negative EPA per play value on early downs. And also until the bye week, their average depth of targets on passes on early downs was, I think, 6.3. That was the third lowest value in the entire league, which is completely bananas when you think you have Justin Herbert and that set of weapons. And then after the bye week, they increased their average depth of target on early downs. And now all of a sudden, I think they are 3rd or 4th in EPA on early downs over the past 2 weeks. So there certainly was some kind of a switch. They thought they had to change something. I think playing against the Eagles defense that drops back to spot cover 2 all game long also helps doing that. But I don't think that the current state of the Vikings defense has enough weapons to contain the Chargers offense. The Chargers will be able to run on early downs. Their left side of the offensive line is completely stout. I don't think that the Vikings, especially in the one game, will be able to handle that. And when you can keep Justin Herbert out of these longer 2nd and 3rd down situations, I just think that he will rip that Vikings defense apart. And on the other side, the Chargers defense, they are trying to not get beat over the top, but they are the worst run defense in the league. And guess what? The Vikings love to run the ball. We will see whether it's with Dalvin Cook or without him. No official word on that yet. But I think this is a game where the Vikings face a defense that plays exactly into their cards, where they can be successful running the ball, and which psychologically might also open up their passing game a little bit more. And it also helps that the Chargers are banged up at cornerback. We don't know whether Asante Samuel and Michael Davis will be back. Samuel was still in the concussion protocol on Monday, and he couldn't even practice on a limited capacity last week. So I think there's a possibility that Samuel is still out. We sometimes see that players stay out for 2 or 3 games with a heavy concussion. Michael Davis has the hamstring injury, so even if he's back, he didn't practice at all last week, he might still be banged up and might be on a snap count. Ryan Smith, their 5th cornerback, is out on IR. So it's really getting thin in the Charter secondary. And if you let the Vikings run the ball, and if you don't have enough cornerbacks to contain Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, I also think that's not a great recipe for success. One other interesting fun fact is that on 10 air yards or more throws, the Vikings are the 2nd best team in EPA per play, but they don't throw the ball a lot. So it makes no sense. I think this is a matchup where they can run the ball efficiently and might throw the ball more often off of that. And those are just 2 good explosive offenses against 2 underwhelming defenses against the pass. And I think that sets up very well for a final score that goes into the mid 50s or even late 50s.
Yeah, I like it. Definitely don't want to be on the under here. Rob, so I don't know if you've had a play already on this game, but anything to add to what Sommer had?
I like the over in this game as well. I've already bet the over. Wholeheartedly agree with everything that Sommer has said. I just want to talk about one specific thing when it comes to the Vikings here, and I don't even know how this is possible. But with the exception of Week 3 this year, where they beat Seattle 30-17, every single one of their games has been decided in the final minute or later. They are a team that is always going to play close games. This is the way they are built, because when they're trailing, their offense gets a lot more aggressive, and that works in their favor because they can actually throw the ball with a lot of success. When they're leading, they're going to let other teams back into the game.
Yeah.
You look at the 3-5 record. I mean, they lost in overtime to the Bengals. They lost on that last-second missed field goal in Arizona. They lost to the Ravens in overtime last week. This is a better team than their record indicates, but historically speaking, people will look to play teasers and they will avoid games like this because it's a high total, right? Where it's like 53 right now. There's a lot more variance in that. It doesn't, fit the mold of the Wong teaser, but I still think the Vikings are a great teaser play this week, regardless. I'm not a huge teaser player myself, but you can tease up through 3-7 in a game where I'm fairly confident that it's going to be close, because not only do the Vikings play close games, the Chargers have won one game by more than 6 points all year as well. They have a tendency to play close games as well. Like I'm going to be floored if this one doesn't come down to the wire in some capacity. So whereas I'm not a huge teaser player, I will be looking to put Minnesota in a lot of teasers this week as well, because I just think that this is one of those opportunities where you maximize the value of the 3-7. Very, very high probability. Like the distribution in this game in terms of how often you get a blowout one way or the other, I think is extremely low. So that's just my commentary on the game. I don't love anything in terms of the side. I do like the over, but also I think Minnesota is a fantastic teaser play.
Yeah, Drew, I can't remember who tweeted on Sunday night, but the Vikings are on pace to be the best 7-10 record team of all time. Obviously, we haven't had these 17 game seasons, but it is true, because I mean, we were in the right spot last week. We admitted this, that like you're getting 6 in Baltimore, and even then, I mean, like, Jesus, if we were on the money line with them, we would be absolutely sick. How are they losing that game?
It's a great question, and I mean, I'm looking at their schedule right now. 7. They're getting to 7 wins. This team is they are fun to watch. They create entertaining football, but it is also absolutely brutal. Even Rob's teaser, like, I mean, you're going to sweat that. This defense was on the field for about 100 snaps against the Ravens last week. Now they got to go to LA, second week in a row traveling. Not a great sign that they're going to be able to put up a ton of resistance. Even, the way they match up against the LA offense is not good on a completely neutral situation. This is a bad situation for that defense. I think the likely game state here is Chargers get a pretty decent lead, and the Vikings have to open up the playbook a little bit, try to come back. That plays into an over. The over was the easy pick here. At this point, up to 3.5, up to 53. I'm not as interested in the over. Is there a 2.5 available for the Chargers? Because that's, to me, I think that's the right look.
What about, and I'll come back to you as well, Sommer, you can get 52 at 1.83, which is minus 120. Anything there? It's not really a key number. Obviously, 51 is the key here, but I don't think there's a major difference there, Sommer, is it?
I would probably take 52.5 at those better prices. But
Well, it's
I'm
actually
also
flat. That's a flat 52 I gave you there. Sorry, so I went down. I went down one full point. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Scoregami potentially. Drew, sorry, I cut in over there, Drew. Sorry.
Scoregami I wouldn't be shocked. We could see like a 52 to 46 kind of game. That wouldn't be surprising. No, I do think the over is the right side here. I think the Chargers are the right side. I don't know that the Vikings defense is going to be able to give you an honest effort at what they're being asked to do right now. On top of the fact that they're not schemed effectively and they can't rush the passer. If you have a decent pass rush and you can attack the right side of the Chargers offensive line, you can stymie their offense to a degree. The Vikings do not have that. So I don't know how the Vikings force a punt in this one. The Chargers may miss some field goals. They may have some turnovers on downs, but I wouldn't be surprised if the punter gets the day off in LA on Sunday.
All right, let's take 52 at 1.83 so as the total player. Do like that, and like you guys said, if the Vikings are down, they're going to open it up, and the Chargers are down, they can open it up pretty big time too. So should be a fun game. Definitely, probably one of the more entertaining on Sunday evening. Saints Titans is the next game I want to talk about. And Rob, I'll actually come to you here for this one first. The betting as we have it at matchbook.com currently, the Saints in the money line 2.34, the Titans at 1.69, Saints getting a full 3 on the main handicap at 1.9, 44.5 is the total. Rob, Titans coming off 4 big wins, averaging I think just under 33 points on offense, but you don't think they're the side here. You think the Saints +3?
I do. I think a lot of people are going to look at this number and they're going to struggle to understand it, and there's going to be like a lot of talk about this is the trap game of the week and whatever. The sports books are trying to bait you into taking one side. But the reality is there's just not that much separating these two teams. And I know the Titans are coming off this really impressive winning streak. Rams, Colts, Chiefs, Bills. Hard to argue with that. I bet the Titans last week. I mean, it's hard to ignore the fact they really didn't do a whole lot, but they won comfortably. They had less than 200 yards of total offense. They had 1.2 fewer yards per play than the Rams. But Matt Stafford had a horrible game. Now, obviously, the Titans contributed to that because they had a good pass rush going, but that was a pretty uncharacteristic performance from Stafford. He launched a couple brutal interceptions, one out of his own end zone, like one of the most embarrassing you'll see all season. And I look at this Saints defense. This Saints defense is really, really good. They're number 4 EPA per play this year, number 3 success rate, number 3 DVOA. That is despite the fact that they've had numerous injuries on the defensive line this season. This is not a great matchup for the Titans offense. Nate Davis and Taylor Lewan are banged up on the O-line. Taylor Lewan dressed last week, but he didn't play in that Sunday night football game. The Saints have a starting corner in Marshawn Lattimore that can take A.J. Brown out of the game. They also have a top 3 rush defense as well. And the Titans still do like to run the ball. We saw it with Adrian Peterson and kind of the complement of running backs they have now with Derrick Henry not being there. And on the other side of things, obviously there's going to be concern with whoever the Saints trot out at quarterback. Trevor Siemian was great coming from behind last week. Didn't look great early on in the game. We probably see some more Taysom Hill packages this week, which I'm not a huge Taysom Hill fan, but Taysom Hill against Atlanta last week is an example. The Falcons saw him twice last season. There's a lack of familiarity here with the Titans. I think that hurts them in trying to game plan for these quarterbacks. And they're not particularly stout at defending opposing running backs out of the backfield either. Now, there are some talks that Alvin Kamara is hurt. I don't expect him to miss the game, even though they're trying to bring in some other running backs just in case. But ultimately, I mean, 3 points is saying that the Titans are better than the Saints, for one. And on top of that, you're giving them some sort of home field advantage that I just don't think exists. And I really struggle to get to 3. I think fair value in this game is closer to 1.5 or 2. I like the Saints. It's my biggest edge in terms of numbers this weekend.
It never gets to 3.5, Rob, surely, does it?
I never say never. I never say never. You might see Alvin Kamara gets injured or like there's doubts about him playing and somebody takes a position on there. I would be surprised because even though the Titans have been winning, they really haven't been generating market interest over the past few weeks either, except for that game against the Chiefs. I guess they took some late money on the Sunday morning, but against the Bills, they didn't generate it, and against the Rams, not really either. So never say never, but I think this is more likely to go towards the Saints side of things.
Drew, you're rolling in with the Saints here?
Oh, yes, very much so. I agree with all Rob's points. The only thing I can add is For those of our friends who listen and love the show, who are also Titans hardcore believers,
There's about one. There's one guy. Yeah.
It feels like there's 20 of them because the guy is very active. But credit to him. Hats off to him. This is a short-term sell high on the Titans. Titans coming off of some very, very impressive victories on the scoreboard. Last week's offensive performance from the Titans was bad, and they won anyway. It didn't matter. And they played a defense that is not as good as the defense they're about to face. You have all of these high leverage games capped off with capped off with a prime time against the Super Bowl favorite Rams. You get the win. Now you come home. You're playing in the middle of the day. You're playing out of conference. Like, this is all of the makings of a decent letdown spot for the Titans after what they've just been through and schedule-wise and achievement-wise. I don't know that they lose outright, but 3 points is absolutely bananas to me. I don't think this ever gets to 3.5 because as Rob's general take, my take, I would say Suma as well. There's a lot of us out there that would blindly grab 3.5 if that showed. And if that's based on Alvin Kamara out news, then that's even more hilarious, in my opinion. Not that he doesn't matter. It's just that the Saints scheme ways to get guys involved offensively that make the singular impact of Kamara pretty neutral, in my opinion. So should be fun for Sean Payton to scheme up ways to attack this defense. The Titans defense is not as good as what we saw against the Rams. They're really not. They've had some standout play from Kevin Byard in a couple of moments in games to this point over the last month that is really kind of shading people's take on them. They still struggle to rush the passer. They still struggle in coverage. Jackrabbit Jenkins is still well over the hill and easily attackable if you're scheming up offense in your Sean Payton. So I like the Saints' opportunity to bounce back here. I think this is a decent, just the same way that last week was a letdown spot for the Saints. This week is a letdown spot for the Titans. It goes around the middle of the NFL season. This is what you almost have to lean on these narratives at times, and I think this one is actually real.
Yeah, comes around, goes around. Sumi, you're going to make it a full house there. The Saints +3.
Yeah, I also like the Saints. I also struggle to get to 3 here. Kudos to the Titans, tons of respect, and this is also not any kind of hate speech because going forward they have one of the easier schedules in the league. I think they got the Texans twice. They will have a good record. They will be in the playoffs, no doubt about it. But if you just take a look at their recent 5-0 stretch, which was impressive against some really good caliber of teams, they did so in some fashion that I don't think is highly sustainable going forward. On that stretch where they went 5-0, they went third in EPA per play differential on late downs. They went first in win probability added from turnovers, 105%, and they went second in EPA differential from turnovers, 24.6. Over that stretch, they also ranked 18th in net series success rate, 11th in net EPA per play on early downs, and 28th in net success rate on early downs. So what they basically did is they were very underwhelming on early downs. They created some very costly turnovers, and they excel defensively or offensively on late downs. And I don't think this is very sustainable going forward. That has to regress. Maybe it regresses this week against a very good Saints defense. I think Rob made some very good points about the defense. And I want to add something. The Saints defense ranks second in EPA per play on first down. They have maybe the best run defense in the league right now. And the Titans have by far the highest rush rate on first down on offense. They want to run the ball on early downs under Mike Rabel. They also are not caring too much about the matchup on the field, no matter against who they play. We saw it in the playoffs against a very good Ravens run defense last year. No matter who's the opponent, they want to run the ball on early downs. And I think they will completely struggle to run the ball against that Saints front, especially if you don't have Derrick Henry. I mean, we all say that running backs don't matter, but Derrick Henry has really excelled in gaining more yards than he was expected to on a play-by-play basis. And the current set of running backs won't do that. And I think that the Saints are able to shut them down on first down, on early downs. And then it makes it really tough for Tannehill on those longer distance downs in obvious passing situations. The Saints this season, they only have 3 down linemen on obvious passing downs. They play with a dime formation behind that. They flood the zones. They have a very good man corner in Marshall Lattimore. And I think that could be the key matchup in this one. And I think the Titans will struggle offensively. And on the other side, I mean, Trevor Siemian and Taysom Hill don't aspire a lot of confidence, but Saints have a great coaching staff. Their offensive line is very good. And finally, in the right set, they have been shuffling around some positions with some injuries over the first 6 weeks. They are finally healthy. Like Drew mentioned, the Titans defense isn't really that good, or at least not as good as we have seen last Sunday. And I think the Saints will come up with something to move the ball and keep it a very competitive game. And then I like having a +3 in my pocket.
Yeah, Drew, go on, jump back in there, but before we wrap it up.
If you're watching this later in the week as we get closer, realistically, this is probably going to 2.5, in my opinion. I don't think this stays a flat 3. And if you are feeling a little, I don't know if I want to get involved with the Saints under a field goal, or I don't know if I want to play the money line because of these quarterbacks, Titans team total under is probably a decent look. I think realistically, this is, you're going to get 5 to 10 wasted handoffs to Adrian Peterson probably in this one. Nothing would make me happier than a more of a emphasis of involving him in the game plan. But realistically, they're going up against an elite defense, and it's going to be a long day for Tannehill and company.
You want to guess what his rushing yards total on Sunday night was, Drew? Peterson?
Like what he actually achieved?
No, what the line was?
Oh, what the line was? It should have been about 8.5.
I was sort of not after time. I got 36.5. And
36 for Adrian Peterson?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
So I woke up on Monday morning before watching the highlights. I normally do this on the late game. I would just go straight to YouTube before checking the report, but I was actually kind of busy on Monday. So I just went straight to the score. And I saw that they won and won well. I said, oh shit, man, they're obviously going to run the ball here. He's ahead. And he wasn't even close. So yeah, it's not going to be 36.5 this weekend.
He was 10 carries for 21 yards, averaging 2.1 a pop. But he got a touchdown.
The classic Jerome Bettis line.
It was.
Really was. Short yardage specialist.
Yeah.
There you go. Keep it that way. I won't be getting 36.5 this weekend on him, unfortunately. All right. And just before we get to the latter stage, just want to do a quick recap of those bets. So we got Browns money line at 2.1, Chiefs -2 at 1.88. The Vikings Chargers over 52 at 1.83, and the Saints consensus they're +3 points at 1.9. And don't forget, you can check out the recap of all those bets at insights.matchbook.com about 2 or 3 hours post recording on Wednesday afternoon. Drew Dinsick, Jags Colts in or any other bet section over 47.5. So you're not buying in that this Jags defense is good all of a sudden. So no. They got Josh Allen on defense, no? Okay.
No. That was a decent play up for that Jags defense. They now get a team with 10 days of rest coming in, playing very competent offensively. I think you have a number of ways you can attack this Jags defense, particularly on the ground. The dynamic running attack of Jonathan Taylor with that offensive line for the Colts really should be able to dictate in this one. Jags run stop is pretty pathetic. As impressive as Josh Allen was against Josh Allen in plays where Josh Allen intercepted Josh Allen and sacked Josh Allen, I think realistically that was his career high point probably. And I think ultimately he is a non-factor in this game. Colts likely get into the 30s. Jags, on the other hand, I think, the Jets proved that the Colts defense is somewhat soft. And there are ways you can attack these guys. They're running predictable stuff. They're not getting a ton of pressure right now. They're not covering well down the field in a 10 to 20 yard range. So Trevor Lawrence should have a decent day here as well. Realistically, this reminds me a lot of the Jags-Titans game and the Jags-Titans over earlier this season, which was in the high 40s and sailed into the 50s, high 50s. I wouldn't be shocked to see this here as well. And reasonably, my fare on this one's about 51. So over 47.5 is a nice look.
Yeah, 1.97 currently at matchbook.com. Rob Pizzola on our run sheet notes, you put Eagles +3, 1.89, and after that you said, didn't like it at all. I'm kind of paraphrasing there slightly. They're in Denver to take on the Broncos, +3, 1.89.
Yeah, so the Dallas-Denver game last week kind of threw everything askew because the Broncos had a great performance. Dallas laid an egg in that game, and it's kind of sent the market out of whack. And people forget that the Broncos, prior to that Cowboys game, they beat Washington at home in a game where they blocked 2 field goals. It was actually quite a close game. They lost to Case Keenum Thursday Night Football. The week before that, they got torched by the Raiders at home. I mean, the Broncos are just not a good football team in general. And say what you want about the Eagles, but their losses have come to the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Bucks, the Raiders, the Chargers. Those are 5 well above average offenses. And now they get a below average Broncos offense with issues on the offensive line. Defensively, the Broncos front 7 is a disaster right now with the amount of injuries that they have, plus trading away Von Miller as well. So really, I just don't see that much separating these two teams. Again, this is like a very similar handicap to Saints and Titans, where I just don't think one team deserves to be favored by 3 points here. So, I'll hold my nose and back Jalen Hurts and the Eagles again, just out of principle in terms of these teams being closer than what the line indicates.
And you discussed Denver there, of course, and last week they put a slacking on the Cowboys, but you like them minus 9.5 at home to the Falcons, 2.02.
I do. And again, so now Dallas is priced
Flip side,
less than they were last week against Denver at home to Atlanta. And like, let's the Falcons are playing better, but they're still without Calvin Ridley. Like, their last 5 games have come against Trevor Siemian, Sam Darnold, Tua, Zach Wilson, Taylor Heineke. This is going to be an enormous step up in class. They do not generate a pass rush whatsoever. Dante Fowler is on IR. They do not have anyone in the front 7 that's capable of getting after the quarterback. I think, honestly, the Cowboys score in any way that they want in this game. It's like one of those get-right games for the Cowboys where the offense just looks like they got it together again. They put up 42 points, and I just don't think the Falcons have the offense to be able to answer it. So I do like the Cowboys in a get-right spot here.
Hey, Suma, I know you don't have anything for this section. We played this game a couple of weeks ago. Gun to the head, though. One of these selections, Jags, Colts over 47.5, Eagles plus 3, or Cowboys minus 9.5. Which one are you picking?
I would probably duck and also take the Eagles at plus 3.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, just because the Broncos, I've watched the game against the Cowboys, and I watched some tape study on that from someone, and it was not like the Broncos defense was doing anything special. I mean, there were some wide open Cowboys receivers running down the field, and Dak Prescott either didn't hit them or went a different direction. Then they had, like, I think 3 crazy drops for a first down from Cooper, from CeeDee Lamb, and from Wilson. And the Eagles are playing better. I think Jalen Hurts looks a little bit improved. Their play call looks a little bit better. Broncos without Bryce Callahan, without Patrick Surtain, front 7 banked up. I think this could be a coin flip game in the end.
Drew, jump back in before we get the best bets.
I love the idea of the Eagles making their team total in this one. The Broncos defense is excellent in pass defense, but they are really, really weak up front. The offensive line for the Eagles should have a great day. They should be able to do what they want. Plan A will work. But on the flip side, I think Broncos are going to be able to score on this Eagles defense. The Eagles defense is not impressive. They're giving you very, very easy looks over the middle of the field. Teddy Bridgewater to Jerry Jeudy to Cortland Sutton. That is going to be a rinse repeat all day on this one. I also agree that the Eagles are the right side here, but I'm starting to warm up a little bit more on this over 44 as sort of the higher edge play.
Interesting. We're kind of having our own scoregami this week on this podcast. I don't think I've ever been on this podcast where your guys' best bets are on the main slate. So every one of your selections we've already covered. Suma, what is the best bet for you this week?
I'm going with the over in Los Angeles. Chargers against Vikings. I think this could potentially turn to a shootout, and I think 52 might still be a little bit short.
Drew, I tipped my hat earlier and almost gave the game away, but what's your best bet?
Kansas City Chiefs for me. Preseason look ahead on this one was Chiefs minus 7.5. Last year, this matchup, Chiefs minus 7. The Raiders are coming into this game without their head coach. from the preseason, without their wide receiver 1 from the preseason, without their CB1 from the preseason. And all of a sudden it's a 2-point game based on the downgrade of the Chiefs. I'm not ready to sell on this team just yet. I think this is a Chiefs 3 to 7 point win. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. That'll be competitive. Derek Carr is playing great. He's been obviously a vocal leader in that clubhouse, getting the most out of these guys. But at the end of the day, Chiefs are the superior team, and this should be another ugly win for them.
Rob Pizzola, your best bet?
Going with the Saints. I mean, I can't get here. I credit to the Titans. Like, the Titans are much better than I thought they were in general. I actually do think that they are a legitimate contender. But there's really not much separating these two teams. And on top of that, you look at the competition in the NFC so far this year. Like, the NFC is a lot better than the AFC right now. I think that's going to manifest itself this weekend as well.
Yeah. All right. Some good looks this week. Don't forget insights.matchbook.com to check out full recaps of those bets. My thanks to Drew. My thanks to Rob. My thanks to Suma. A lot of fun as ever, gentlemen. Halfway there. The regular season, anyway. A lot more to come in the Matchbook Betting Podcast. Until next Wednesday, goodbye for now and best of luck with your bets.